if you wanted to ask questions or participate. And just a couple of housekeeping items, for those of you who are not aware, we have a Facebook group where we all can contribute to the community, share with each other what we're experiencing, and talk about the solution and other solutions in technology. There's a lot of physician founders in there, there's a lot of patients in there, and the group is growing every day. We also have surveys, and we have a 5 for 500 club. For those of you who are unaware, we're building our MVP right now as we speak, and in order to build it with you in mind, we want to make sure that we're asking everybody who they are and where they are and what's important to them to have in that minimal viable product. And so we're doing surveys, and for those who participate and do 5 surveys, entered into a chance to win $500, which I think is kind of cool. And so with that being said, I'll get started. Everyone here, you're all patients and physicians who, we all are realizing that the system isn't really working for us. We're all suffering as doctors and patients, and that's part of why we're here today, to learn about this new potential solution, the HPEC solution. And as doctors, we all took the Hippocratic Oath. We all sacrificed our youth to learn the practice of medicine in order to learn to take care of people and heal people, and decided today to join this movement and to essentially fight for our profession and for our patients. And that's what this is about. And so I'm really glad that everybody's taken that initiative. And so without further ado, I would like to discuss a little bit about what today is about and introduce our guest. And just to, oh, no, go ahead, take a break really quick. I'm going to talk a little bit about a few other things first. So, for those of you who have invested in HPEC, thank you for acknowledging this potential opportunity. A lot of you maybe have only invested in a 401k, or maybe you've dabbled a little bit in the stock market, or maybe some real estate investing. But many of you aren't really familiar with angel investing or venture capital investing. And these are really, oftentimes in earlier stage companies before they've gone public. And so I want to share a little bit about what crowdfunding is and why it's unique, and why this opportunity is special and unique. We're taking advantage of crowdfunding, which has really only been available since 2016, when the Jobs Act was passed. Before the 2016 Jobs Act, you had to be an accredited investor in order to invest in a startup. Meaning, you had to make over a certain amount every year, and you had to know that you would be making that much money. And there was a lot of paperwork. It was a very overburdensome, paperwork-heavy process to become an investor in an early-stage startup. And so we all talk about how the rich are getting richer. This is part of why. Because before the Jobs Act, only the wealthy were allowed to invest in early-stage startups like Facebook before it went public and Tesla before it went public. But now with crowdfunding, we can all take part in these opportunities. And what's really amazing and unique is that we can make small investments that we're comfortable with as non-accredited investors. And the HPEC opportunity, you can invest as little as $250 and become a part of a movement and give this potential solution a chance. And so we've done really well. We are the leading investment on the Fundopolis crowdfunding portal. It's one of the less than, I think, 50 crowdfunding portals that are available currently through the Securities and Exchange Commission. And we're #1. And that's only after 3 months. And we have 3 more months to go. And so the other type of investing is venture capital. And that's usually a little bit later stage, but I want to introduce a physician investor in HPEC who's also a venture capital partner at Loud Capital. And for those of you who don't know what Loud Capital is, it is a venture capital firm that's physician focused. There's several physician partners in the firm. And so they really focus on, physician forward investments and healthcare forward investments. And so I'd like to introduce Dr. Marshall Kuremsky, who is an orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine, and hand fellowship trained, double boarded, and he's in North Carolina currently, and he has taken the initiative to become an HPEC investor, and he's going to share a little bit about who he is and a little bit more about Loud Capital.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Leah. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Awesome. Cool. Well, it is my pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me. So yeah, I'm one of the founding investors of HPEC, and as I have told a few people, I did it because of you. I did it because I believe in you, and because of your passion and enthusiasm for this cause. And I haven't seen that too often, at least in the way that you do it. So as a physician, and because of what you are supporting and how you're doing it, to me, I was interested right away. And I think that HPEC represents something really great. There is a lot of opportunity here for physicians and for patients. Your company, our company, stands for some of the really important things: autonomy, independence, respect, privacy, ownership. Whether you're a patient or whether you are a physician or whether you're an investor or you're some combination, there's a lot of value here. Okay. And here's the other crazy thing. When this succeeds, okay, if and when this succeeds, this is going to be really disruptive. And that's not throwing around a catchy or vogue term. Like, this is big time, because what you're really doing is taking on healthcare and hospital systems and insurance companies and the government. And I'm glad it's you, not me. I'm along for the ride for sure, and I got your back, and I'm supporting you. But this is big and bold. So think to myself, what kind of big and bold stuff am I involved in? Well, when I'm not doctoring, I am a venture capitalist, which means I'm either raising money or deploying money or looking for investments or getting involved in things or advising. And the name of my company that I work with is called Loud. But that's it. Like, what you're doing is loud. It's bold. It's big. It's yeah, I'm serious. I'm serious. Like, that's the thing. And you're really passionate about it, and you do a great job, and you're on social media with it. And I think that it's marketing itself without even really trying, simply because there is no shortage of material to get us fired up about the problems that are at hand. I mean, it comes every day, right? So I don't know. That was the way I decided to approach this when you kindly asked me if I would be willing to share some thoughts and some time, which to me I was like, hey, that's really awesome. I'm just going to shoot from the hip, because I could give all kinds of thoughts and emotions and opinions on this. And it's easy for me because I think I'm speaking from the heart and honestly about something that I believe in. And that's because there's a whole lot more bad news, and bad news for us online, in the news and in the media and everywhere I look, than there is good news or things to be positive feeling about. So I'll stop there for now and let you take over, because if not, it might be 20 minutes later.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And, I have to tell everybody here, yeah, I got an email from Marshall a couple weeks ago, and he said, I want to invest more. I said, great. And I said, can you also invest some time and share a little bit about your story? So, I know a lot of, right now is kind of dinner time for people and stuff. So I really appreciate him taking the time to share a little bit about what he's doing. And I know there's been tons of questions that have come through. And I'm wondering if anybody here has any questions for me about HPEC or for Dr. Kuremsky or...
You're live.
Go for it. Did somebody say they had a question? or comment?
Yeah. Hi, thanks, Marshall. I have a question. What is the one, as a physician and as a VC, what do you think, if you could refine it, what would be the one point that was a turning point for you? Like yourself, I also want to invest more. I've invested, I want to invest more, and I want to explain it to the physicians in my family and in my circle. But I also live in Silicon Valley, and I try to follow the startup scene. And investors we're solving a big problem. There has to be a huge problem, and there has to be a very elegant solution, which I think HPEC is. But if we were going to pinpoint something, what can I 's to talk to people, family and friends about this? That appeal to you as an investor, that it's time to take action and invest in HPEC.
So for HPEC specifically, right? Well, I'll give you two answers. One is Leah, okay? And I don't say that very often, but I always value the people, the team, the individuals, the leadership more than the idea. That's my philosophy on investing, but honestly, it extends beyond that. Like, I don't know, I believe in people. So when I find good leaders, good mentors, good role models, I attach them, and that has never steered me wrong in my entire life, professionally or non. Okay, and maybe that's one of my skills too. I don't know. Maybe lots of people can do that, but I feel like I can smell BS, and I can also smell talent and winners. So that's the first thing, is that she was noticeable on social media. But then again, like, this is potentially massive. So at the time that I decided to invest, I'm tied up in a lot of things, and I've got some, hopefully, knock on wood, really big things about to happen. But when I decided to pull the trigger, I didn't have a lot. And Leah's minimum was like super friendly, and that's rare. In my world, minimums are often 25,000 or more typically even 50,000. And for some bigger deals with some significant returns, you might be looking at six figures, and that's just the way it is. It takes money to make money, but my goodness gracious, Lee, it's 250, right? Currently on this round, in this raise for an investor.
Yeah, that's right. And, I want people to understand, that really is tied to the crowdfunding opportunity. Before crowdfunding was a thing, that was never made possible, because the paperwork associated with we're purchasing stock in a company. We're purchasing securities. This is a very highly regulated, investment instrument that, previously there was just too much red tape and bureaucracy around it to allow for such small investments. But, for me, this is a solution for us. We're solving a problem for ourselves as physicians. We have essentially had our time and energy co-opted. They've taken the relationships that we have with our patients, and they've, siphoned off our time and energy, and they've really essentially made money off of the pain and suffering of our patients. And we've all seen the deterioration of the system. And if you really think about it, it's with the digitization of the practice of medicine. It's when, the HIPAA Privacy Act came out in 1996, and the HITECH Act, all of these, essentially turning the physician-patient relationship into a bundle of data that they can extract and collect through these digital instruments and these data capturing models. And that's really how our relationship has deteriorated. And so this is a real solution. A lot of people say, well, how are you going to get hospitals to get on board with this? And, EHRs are, so big right now. How are you going to convince them to adopt this? Well, we have a secret. And that secret lies in the fact that this technology is going to be ubiquitously applied across industries. Already banks are adopting it. When you log in to systems in general right now, you're logging in with oftentimes single sign-on technology. And that's kind of the old way of doing things. And the new way of doing things is going to be with this new self-sovereign identity technology. And the reason is because data privacy and security is something that people are really starting to pay attention to. If you look at the regulatory climate, GDPR, California Data Protection and Privacy Act, and with patients and their interoperability of their health records and information blocking, the 21st Century Cures Act. And I don't want to go into a rabbit hole of, the real technical stuff behind this, but Dr. Adrian Gropper, I think I saw him in the group here. He's been working on an identity technology for patients that's based on self-sovereign identity too, because it is the future. We need to regain control over this relationship. We need to make our electronic records ours. According to Fourth Amendment property rights, anything that we create is ours. And it's our patients. And these third parties who are owning and controlling it, it's really not only not secure, but it's not good for our patients either. And so this is the technology of the future. It's being adopted with or without us. So I say, let's build it for ourselves. We're in this new era where we have this opportunity to build it ourselves.
Yeah, this is naive. I think I have few thoughts and a few, you can say, pain points in that area. And especially owning the data and the privacy aspect of it. It all boils down to government or regulation control perspective. Like GDPR or the European Constitution says that privacy is an individual human right, where in US Constitution, there is not even one single word that called privacy. Also, the only closest thing you can see is the Fourth Amendment, which say illegal seizure and search, and that's mostly from the government perspective or some other use perspective. But there is no privacy here. Even HIPAA, basically, there is no privacy. If you look up, when they talk about HIPAA, I and P, people think probably information and privacy, but it has nothing to do with that. I recently implemented the GDPR for Boston Scientific, for that matter. I was heading that program. So I learned a lot about, the privacy and the implementation. So that's one of the concerns is here, just concept is really great. I'm for it. But when you look at the practicality and the feasibility of this implementation, in US at least, I'm not sure it's really in the next 20 years type of things, it can really roll. Even now, telehealth kind of thing, when you think of it, only thing that was mostly acceptable because what they call the emergency, public health emergency was there, and also some CPT codes were given to use that. So it's a business-centric kind of things. Technology is great, like the blockchain, I love it, but it's really doesn't go along with what GDPR says, right to forget. It breaks the chain. So it's great for, supply chain and all those kind of things. It's a right usage. So I think that is the only, I would say, concern I see is with this kind of concept. It's a great concept, we need to go on, but it's a lot more, it's this social change and the regulatory change from the government's perspective. Even in US, only state of New Hampshire has a constitution that's they use the information as a property.
Yep.
But none of the states have anything of any sort that, because when you have property, then the rights come on.
You're absolutely right. And I really appreciate all those points. And you hit a lot of the things that I always talk about. And to a certain extent, a little bit of this is about us demanding that we have privacy in our relationships again. It's about us, Dr. Megan Babb, I don't know if she's here tonight, but she's also a founding partner. She wrote an article called Hippocratic Oath 2.0. in my opinion, I mean, that's exactly what this is. This is the Hippocratic Oath 2.0. Now that our relationships have been digitized, it's now up to us as physicians to uphold the Hippocratic Oath and to put our patients first. Are we going to continue to interact with these surveillance models where our patients' information is being captured, analyzed, and then used against them in order to deny them services and to deny us payments?
Sure.
You know, I totally agree with you that a part of this is going to be, you know, we have to demand it. Dr. Rapper, yes.
So the brilliance of what Leah is creating is, to your point, Nassim, is that by combining the authority of the doctor to bill, to spend the money, however, with crowdfunding, she now, we, not she, but we as a community are fully in control. We are no longer dependent on the adoption of these modern digital methods, which we're not going to go into tonight, though I'm happy to take questions about at least the ones that I'm involved in. But it is, this is this is the whole package, right? So in other words, you have the leadership capability that Marshall talked about, but then you also have this concept that there is no externality when you're dealing with the physicians, with the licensed entities, and that's it, both for finance and for execution.
Amazing, thank you. I appreciate that. And you also, go ahead.
Sorry, so for those that keep up with sports, there have been a lot of things recently going on. They're actually probably pretty relevant to what we've got going on. I think we would agree that in general, the physician community is good-natured, humanitarian, in general, not self-serving, patient-oriented first. We've been well compensated, right? We've been well compensated, but we have also probably allowed a leakage or an erosion of our worth as well. And the big business behind medicine and healthcare is exactly that. It is business. And so for whatever the amount of dollars that are in circulation, they are being siphoned away from us. And I think, you know, I'll speak for myself, but I'm sure there are others who would agree. I just don't want to keep taking pay cuts because my job's not getting easier. In fact, it's getting harder. I work less hours than I did as a resident, but with way more responsibility and with way higher stress level because the buck stops with me for all kinds of things. And so what you don't want over time, because you're already battling inflation, is finding out that Medicare wants to have cuts for all these procedures. And it's something, it's circular. It happens all the time. And you try to fend off that what you can. But you look at hospitals and CEOs and their value is there too, but the wealth that they are earning is preposterous. It's really preposterous. They don't have the skills, the licenses, or the ability to actually provide the care. I would settle for not taking pay cuts. Me personally, I would settle for that. I don't feel like I should be devalued. What I'm getting at with the sports, what you have seen recently is a leveraging of one's skill set and abilities. It is currently happening in college sports as they are aspiring to be paid for their likeness, to be able to earn money while in college and therefore considered amateur status, not professional athletes. The NCAA forbids them from being paid for their likeness. So they can't do commercials. They can't market a sports drink. They can't wear a t-shirt from Nike and get paid by Nike for doing that. Well, the Pac-10 athletes are trying to suggest that they may not play unless some things are changing. And there's a whole battle going on. And you see that across other sports as well, where they want to be compensated for what they do because the owners can't do it. That being said, we have a skill set. Nobody can provide for patients the way we can. And it's not disparaging. Like when I have a problem, I go to the doctor. I don't try to fix it myself unless it's very simple. So I think we need to protect what's ours because nobody else will. It's easy for big businesses to organize, or for United Healthcare or Blue Cross Healthcare as an entire entity to leverage their massive power, their unions, and their support. We have none of that. We have a huge denominator of individuals that do what we do with no collective bargaining and no common goal. HPEC is one of those steps in the direction. Blockchain technology is important. Maintaining autonomy and independence is important. Maintaining privacy is important. And most of all, maintaining ownership. Because without it, it just gets, a little bit gets chewed away every year by people who are willing to be sharks.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to be a shark. You can, there's nothing wrong with that, but we can't be sheep. And so seeing what college athletes and pro athletes are doing as they negotiate their labor contracts, they're fighting for their right for fairness on the equity side because they're not replaceable.
Leah, can I say something? I want to thank you for being an amazing leader. I must say, one of the problems we've had, my name is Dr. Jose Bolaños. I'm a Stanford OBGYN grad who had been in practice for 20 years, and I've seen it all. You know, it started when the HMOs came in. It was supposed to decrease costs, and instead costs skyrocketed. But the problem really originated within us. Doctors backstab each other within medical communities. You have sham peer review. You have doctors that want to protect their own revenue stream, and so they actually wind up causing problems for younger docs that come into the community. I mean, I've seen it all. We have allowed for the HMOs to prosper. We've allowed for them to create networks that we then sign up for. What you were saying about sports, the difference between us and a pro athlete has one agent. We sign up for every goddamn contract. We have 20 agents, so they pay us the lowest possible fee because they're managing it all. That's a really big problem. With regards to identity, the federal government just last week has now authorized the use of a single global identifier in order to improve interoperability. So they've been refusing that for years, and the CIO community needs, you know, you had EMRs, then health information exchanges, and then you use algorithms to try to do patient record matching, but you still have a 10% error rate, and that's a real big problem. So they've come in now and allowing this. A self-sovereign identity on the blockchain is essentially public and private key. It's not really an identity. You have a number. You have a public key as a number as your ID. And when you use it in the realm of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, if you have a public and private key, right? The problem with cryptocurrencies is that if I'm a business owner and I want to pay somebody with cryptocurrencies, and I just spent $10,000 with a developer, I can't write off of my taxes because it's a number to a number. You can't tell the government that you paid some agency, you know, 10 grand. So Bitcoin is the store of value. Some of the other currencies that are coming through, we need to have a true identity linked to a blockchain identity. So that when you do a transaction, if I have Bitcoin and I'm going to pay you in Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever, it's Jose Bolaños just paid Leah Houston, you know, $2,000 for joining this event, and now I can write off my taxes. When that happens, all hell's going to break loose. And Leah, you've done an amazing job. Leah and I have been collaborating on this for quite a bit. My wife and I were in Switzerland over the last 3 years, and we're actually dealing with identity management also. My company is called Nimbus-T.com or Nimbus T Global. And we're hoping to launch a cryptocurrency called NT Coin, which will be payment system for healthcare, where all of a sudden we can pay each other, and instead of using insurance, we tell employers, hey, listen, we can save you 50% on your healthcare costs by essentially, you know, you buy major medical insurance, which is what insurance is for, and then you put $5,000 for every employee into an account. They have a $5,000 deductible and just pay peer-to-peer. And no bullshit, no networks.
Yeah,
you go to see whoever you want.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm so glad that you're here. I think this is the first time that you've joined us for a Zoom call, and we've had multiple conversations. And, you know, he pointed out something really important, that this is going to be a new ecosystem at every level. I personally don't know if a patient identifier is the answer. You know, we all have NPI numbers, all the physicians here, and that was supposed to solve the problem, and all it's done is really is allow the people to
No, that's available on the internet. You get a 6 gigabyte file with everybody's NPI number, and that's where the fraud happens.
right.
$250 billion a year in Medicare fraud.
Right. I think that that's
It
what my
should be, it should be secret.
right, because it's public, because it's not self-sovereign and owned by the individual.
Yeah.
Not valuable to us as individuals. It's only valuable to these third-party entities. And I don't want to go down a blockchain rabbit hole, but yeah, sure, this type of tool could allow us to accept cryptocurrency. It could allow us to accept fiat currency. It was really interesting today. A random stranger on Twitter said, I remember when, my family used to pay my doctor in produce and chicken eggs when somebody mentioned cryptocurrency. And that's kind of what it is. It's a new way of storing value and trading value if we do choose to use that. But many of us might not choose to do that. And that's what this is about. This is about agency and autonomy and the choice of the individual.
And unity. And unity amongst physicians, because the problem is we haven't been united.
Right. This gives us an opportunity to collaborate and convene and to come to a consensus without having the hierarchical structures. We have our national and regional medical associations. Why is it that they have failed? Because as groups and systems grow, it becomes harder and harder to organize and to come to a consensus, because it requires hierarchy unless there's these consensus algorithms that are available through decentralized systems like we're trying to build. But I do want to give Mark Wilcoxon an opportunity to speak. He's our healthcare economist. He's done the valuation for our company. He did the deep he dug into the history of credentialing and the cost around credentialing. We are building a credentialing tool first because our credentials are the foundation of our identity as doctors. And yes, we do plan to leverage it in all of these other ways. We feel that this has basically an unlimited upside later, but we're credentialing first. And so I just want to hear from him because he's had his hand raised.
I just wanted to say real quick, I just completed a study in which I was able to quantify physician and nurse burnout, and it's costing $31 billion a year for physician burnout. And what I'm specifically referring to is MOC and EHR burnouts. And the other thing I wanted to, the reason I raised my hand, as a numbers person, I always like to hear how you're doing with your goal in terms of, you don't have to say how much you're trying to raise, but what percent are you at in what you're trying to raise? And one thing I actually haven't gotten in, I've never asked, when do you plan on rolling out HPEC?
And when you say growing out, do you mean building, or do you mean
making the product available?
So, okay, I'll answer your first question first. So we've raised close to $300,000 at this point. We've raised close to $100,000 on our current crowdfunding portal, another, I think $20,000 off the portal in this round. And then another $170,000 was raised in the friends and family round. So that's a total of about, 290. So, we're close to 300,000. We do need, listen, if we raise $1 million, I'll feel confident that we can build this. I will feel less comfortable with the runway. I think that if we reached a $2 million goal, I'd feel more comfortable with a 1.5 to 2 year runway where we wouldn't have to seek any additional funding, which would really kickstart this project and give us the resources that we need to build. The developers cost money. So what we're doing with the friends and family round that we raise is we are developing an MVP as we speak. And that's going to be just a basic product that leverages self-sovereign identity, that allows us to store our credentials, to verify that we are who we say we are. And we're hoping that it also has an opportunity for us to communicate with each other. But that's still in development, whether or not we're going to be able to add that part in. And you know, these things take time. I would love to have something out by November, December, but it's hard to say because we're still in the design and mock-up phase. And so that's where we're at with that. So, you know, this crowdfunding opportunity is really our chance as physicians to own this together. I'm going to start to discuss this opportunity with non-physician investors and other accredited investors over the next month or so. So, you know, sharing is caring. You know, if you've already become an investor, share it. You know, we're going to be launching an ad campaign where, you know, we have another explainer video that's coming out. So if you could share that on social media and keep this as physician owned as possible. You know, I want this to be a solution that we're building for ourselves. And was there another question I missed?
Not for me.
No? Okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. Does anybody else have any other questions? I know there was a couple people that had emailed some in.
Well, Leah, while you're digging, can I speak up with a quick one?
He's done.
Sure, who's speaking?
Bob Schubring over
There
here.
you are. Okay, I see you.
Yes. Yeah, the old guy who looks like a Civil War general. But I feel like one too, just about now. The thing, Grant in particular, digging a hole around Vicksburg and hoping I don't get dug out myself. Anyhow, I'm going to throw an idea out there. I'm aiming it at Marshall just in case, but anybody else can jump in who's got an opinion. I'm in a very early stage startup called Moss Health, and well, the health comes in because my patent lawyer did some work that's related to what I'm doing, and used it in a medical imaging device as part of his doctoral dissertation. But what we actually have, we've got a ferroelectric memory material that's non-volatile. And as you can unplug it from the electricity and it holds its information for 20 years. We actually that was done in a US Air Force study with their candidate material. It sat in a desiccator jar at Wright Laboratory for 20 years and it held its data bits. It's a million times more radiation hard than silicon when it comes to any sort of, you know, whether it's techno vandalism with EMP devices or you know, if we're building equipment for operating in cislunar space where there's intense solar radiation of some sort to cope with. Anyhow, it's a useful technology for preserving data, including things like your medical credentialing systems. And I'm kicking around the idea of, right now, I'm trying to do a pre-seed round of about 35K to fund an exhaustive search through some patent literature before we go out and actually do a raise. And I'm wondering if there would be interest on the part of anybody here that I could, you know, float that and give them, you know, X percentage of the whole thing, or give, you know, rights to this group to use my invention for purposes of self-sovereign identities, you know. And
I would love to learn more about this technology. I think that you've mentioned it before. My advice when it comes to this kind of stuff is find a patent lawyer.
I have. He's a partner in the company.
Okay, well, I was going to say, the majority of people who helped me with the very things that you're talking about did it for nothing, because they really believed in this. They took their time and their energy. Mark Wilcoxon is here. He just asked a question. He did not charge me a dime for his in-depth company valuation and analysis. And in fact, he actually became an investor. My attorney also has done all of the work pro bono, and I'm not saying that everybody's going to do that, but just for a patent search and paying for a patent search and that much money sounds like a lot of money to me. And if it's a good enough idea, you might be able to find a partner that's willing to either donate that time or work for equity. And at this early stage, that's what I would recommend doing.
Yeah, the challenge on the search itself is if the search is done by someone who has equity in the company, now their ethics are challenged.
Conflicted, I understand.
Right.
Yeah.
So
well, let's talk about this offline. I'd be happy to talk, unless there was something you wanted to add, Dr. Kuremsky.
No, I think your suggestion is it's great that somebody has done it pro bono for you. I think that says a lot about our company, the idea, or your relationships with them, and that's great. But your idea about wanting to see more and take a look at it, I mean, I think that's a good idea. It's reasonable. Bob, I mean, I like that you're thinking outside the box here too, where you're even wondering like, hey, maybe this is something where we join and merge forces to some extent. Part of me, when I think about this, like, this is such a massive hill to climb. We need a lot of things. And all good projects start slowly, right? Amazon, Google, all of these things. These are the biggest of the big companies. Nobody believed in them. There's pictures of Jeff Bezos in it's a famous picture. He's in, it's like a black and white photo. He's got a desk full of papers all over and like this old school looking like Apple IIe computer. And he's crafting his idea probably when everybody thought he was nuts. And look at him now. These are not things that can be done in a few months' time, not the big mountains that need moved. So the key is to never lose momentum or faith, to get membership, to have your investments and your capital raise be strong, to develop this technology, make it further. We need doctors and physicians to buy in. We are not replaceable. I'm going to dovetail for a second here. Insurance companies and the government would like to think that mid-level providers, for which I have nothing against, but they don't have the same training. And that's not to say that there aren't good ones or those that are very experienced or doing an outstanding job, and not to say that there aren't poor physicians. That's not my point. In general, the training is not the same. The burden is not the same. And there are oftentimes, when you're the physician, that's your patient and you need to figure it out. You may be able to refer if you're a generalist and you need a specialist. But if you're in a rural area, or if you are the specialist, or if it's not a specialist level problem, it's a general medical problem, or you're in the ER, like Leah, like you need to figure it out. And mid-levels always have somebody else that they can go to, right? And so it's not going to be the same. What we don't want to do is find ourselves being replaced because government, insurance, societies, healthcare systems find that to be a more attractive, less expensive option. What I forgot to mention about the athlete analogy earlier is it is always about the money. It is never not about the money. When they tell you it's not about the money, they're lying to you. There may be a few percentage people that have, they act with good intentions and out of the goodness of their heart, and their mindset is proper. But by and large, everybody is always looking at the bottom line. And that's the difference, is that we don't. And so over time, we have sacrificed that. We have sacrificed our bottom line. And it is time to dig your heels in and stick up for all of the things that doing that will get you. So they are in lockstep with each other. Patient privacy, autonomy, physician independence, physician ownership of your medical license and your privileges. We own all of that. If you want to move mountains, we can do it. it's going to be a slow battle, but as we get more and more momentum, it will pick up quickly, because I don't think Leah's going away with her presence online and her passion for doing this. At some point, this is going to be a major pain in the ass for some healthcare system, for some hospital, or for some insurance company. And they're going to need to deal with us. So that is my mindset on that, is you need to keep growing and fueling the product, because it's a good product. And there may be other ideas that need to get folded in over time. But anyway, I just keep in mind, dollars drive this discussion for lots of other people. They're not driving it for us. We're interested in other factors, but for everybody else, they care about the bottom line. You can never lose sight of that, because it is not about the care for the patients or the end result or anything like that. It's always about the dollar.
I agree with you completely, Marshall. Very well said. I think physicians and patients also don't realize about insurance companies. Insurance companies are not incentivized to make patients feel better or solve their medical problem. Whether the patient is feeling better or not, the insurance company is making a lot of money. The hospital is making a lot of money. The incentive is not aligned with patient wellness whatsoever. In fact, patients being sick and being under the care of an independent nurse practitioner, it actually works out better for the insurance company. The nurse practitioners will order exactly how the hospital system wants these tests ordered, or extra consults or whatever. Why are things like labs and pharmaceuticals so expensive? One of the reasons is because the people who make these rules are not physicians. They don't know the value of a CBC is what we can look at and interpret. The value of a CBC is not drawing the blood and putting it in a machine, but that's where they make their markup, because they are not interested in actually taking care of patients like we are. We can take control of our ecosystem and take back our leverage, and we can extend these silly little expenses, the discounts, to the patient. So we will have our leverage. We don't have to mark up and monetize every little CBC for $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever. And we can actually reduce, the healthcare costs are high because they're parasitic middlemen in the middle. So many. And Peter Thiel says, what is the one contrarian truth that you know? So it's very sad that in 2020, the contrarian truth is that the whole value of this $3.4 trillion industry is the physician. I think we're all of the value. I don't even think we're part of the value. And everyone has monetized us, and we're on the table. We're not invited to the table. We have to get our leverage back, and we'll do that by owning our credentials, first of all.
Bingo. Perfectly said. Thank you.
Hey, it's Armando.
Yeah.
How are you doing? How's everyone?
Good. I'll definitely get to you, Bradley. Promise. Go ahead. Go.
Can I just add something, and it goes along with what everyone's saying? And I think it's been a while since I've been on one of these calls, probably a couple months or a few months, but I remember there was some discussion about the American Medical Association, and I know they've been a little bit more vocal than I remember them being, but I don't know if they're like a group that typically it would not be along the lines of what we're trying to do here, even though you would think something called the AMA would be looking out for the interests of physicians. They've, I think, stood more along the looking out for the big corporate groups and stuff like that, but they're not alone. I mean, at least within our specialty, Leah, like the American College of Emergency Physicians, you would think would be looking out for individual ER doctors, but they've been, their conferences are sponsored by these, locum tenens groups that have gotten bigger and bigger, and, Envision and whatnot. I don't know what all the specialties are of everyone else on this call, but I'm sure your specialty societies probably have conferences that are sponsored in part or almost fully by these large corporations. So we, like everyone said before me, we've kind of done it to ourselves. The question now is, can we find a way to ally with these physician societies that traditionally, in the last few decades have sided on the side of, the corporatocracy, and convince them that it's in their best interest to align with these kind of grassroots networks, because I think they're starting to see with this pandemic where corporate medicine is going, and the patients are starting to see that too. So I just don't know if it's something that we'd reach out to them, or are we just going to continue doing our own thing
I
from the
think we
bottom
need
up?
to have our leverage, and they will reach out to us. They'll come on their own when we are actually focusing and being productive on a mission. Then they will come to us. Right now, they're not serving our needs.
Well, right now, the AMA has, you know, has never really served us well, and the membership is at an all-time low. And they make us pay fees for the AMA, the CMA, the County Medical Society every single time you register to have privileges at a hospital. I mean, they kill us to death with fees. It's ridiculous. But we really need to take over the AMA is what it amounts to, and then control it from the top.
I don't necessarily want to say we should take over, and we do need to hear from Bradley and Mark also. But you know, this is all a product of consolidation. And just remember, it's the American Medical Association, not the American Physician Association or the American Patient Association. So, you know, just some food for thought. Bradley, go.
Hey everybody, I'm Brad Dreyfus. I'm also an emergency physician, public health specialist, and founder and CEO of HCW Hosted. So honestly, I don't know if many of you saw the New York Times op-ed that I wrote back in June, but I can tell you that it has absolutely changed not just my life, but really has allowed us to have the platform to really help articulate how our current system does not serve our patients, us, or any of our other healthcare worker colleagues. So HCW Hosted really is about finding ways to support our healthcare workers in the front line of COVID, but really it's a community-based pandemic preparedness model moving forward. I can tell you that in my conversations with Todd Unger, he did a podcast. I mean, just having anything in the New York Times, I had no idea what it would mean, but it meant huge amount of opportunity to talk with people who are actually driving these conversations. Todd Unger is the AMA's chief experience officer, and it's very clear that he is trying to change the AMA. And if you've seen their AMA updates, or at least a perception of the AMA, and his heart really is in it. I've had some offline conversations with him. And so it gives me hope, because I'm not a member of the AMA for all the reasons that everyone has already articulated. And I take huge issue with it. And in fact, so moving beyond the AMA, today I was on a DNCC panel. Like, that's how freaking crazy this has gotten. And it's
what is DNCC?
for the Democratic National Committee Convention.
Okay.
So Monday night, yeah. And they were going to have just physicians on talking about the effects of COVID. And I really encourage them to have it across healthcare workers. And so they had a nurse who's been working in a really influential way to talk about PPE. They had a DACA recipient paramedic and another nurse who also who worked in a COVID ward who got COVID. And that means we're actually gonna be able to transmit the message and wake the public up, right? We need to wake the public up to what is not serving them. Just like and I'm not partisan, I'm an independent. I didn't mention Trump or Biden's name in any of my comments. So I wanna get that out there. But the public is starting to realize, and that it doesn't work for them. And for the first time ever, they are aligned with their healthcare workforce, right? The amount of empathy and otherwise. So that provides us the opportunity to work on the messaging to help create that change. COVID tsunami and COVID flu tsunami this winter is going to blow over our system.
I think that, yeah, I love what you're saying. And I think that.
Let me just finish one thing.
Sure.
So for us, it's right now, it's about positioning. And that's why I invested in HPEC. It's about having momentum moving forward. And so when we do need to raise a healthcare system from the ashes, we can have it have an impact orientation to start. What is the point of having a healthcare system? Who should it be serving? Who are the key components? And unequivocally, physicians are towards the top of that pyramid, if not the top of that pyramid. However, we as physicians need to be wanting and willing to be working with our nurses and with all of the other folks that allow us to be successful in our healthcare spaces, right? The unions have split us, the insurance companies have split us, the health systems have split us against our colleagues who we work with and have the very same mission of caring for patients. That's what needs to change. So as we're moving forward, my personal plea to everyone is, don't let this become a physicians, because implicitly we're at the top. We don't need to keep saying it. We need to bring people in effectively while not also letting the insurance companies and the healthcare systems marginalize our pivotal role in being leaders of the team. And I'll shut up. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And I don't mean to rush you at all. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time because we're coming up on the hour. But I think that the thing that stands out to me the most about what you said is it's the individuals. It's not the AMA. You talk about this one person that is part of the leadership of the AMA who really does want to change things, who's doing their best with the resources that they have. It's the individuals who are making these choices. And just, I want to point out to everyone that we as a community right here, the 29, 20, 30 of us that are here tonight, you know, we represent a fraction of the physician population and the patient population, but we're activated. We're activated to change and to see, you know, the solutions and to be the change that we want to see. And you're absolutely right. It's not the Democrats, it's not the Republicans, it's not the Joes, it's not the Trumps. It's, you know, it's us who are going to make a change. You know, we talk about corporations and we talk about government, and some people want more government care and some people want more capitalistic care. It has nothing to do with that. It's the individuals who are behind everything. And I do want to allow Mark to chime in. You had wanted to say something. Do you still?
Yeah, let me just chime in a little bit on organized medicine. First of all, I'm a rheumatologist in private practice outside Philadelphia. I serve on the board of trustees for the Pennsylvania Medical Society. I'm a member of the AMA. I'm not really involved in the AMA. They do some good things. They do some bad things. They get a bad rap for some things that's not deserved. Whatever, but let me share a little story with you. A few years ago, I organized a meeting in Orlando, Florida, between the president of the AMA, along with several grassroots groups. That included the Association of Independent Doctors, Physicians Working Together, the Benjamin Rush Institute, a couple other grassroots organizations. And I was able to coordinate a meeting with the AMA based on a meeting I'd gone to in February that year, this is 2016, where the AMA's agenda coincided with a lot of the agenda that the grassroots organizations were looking at, including scope of practice, prior auth, etc. I coordinated this meeting, and the gist of this meeting with the president of the AMA and these grassroots organizations was that the AMA has the infrastructure to get all these things done. It's like a big ocean liner, and you guys, the grassroots, you're just like a bunch of dinghies. And we'll welcome you on board. We'd love to have you join us, but we're the ocean liner, and you guys are small potatoes. And the response to that was a very simple one, and that is, yes, we are small potatoes, we are dinghies by comparison, but dinghies can maneuver very quickly. It doesn't take a lot for a dinghy to turn in the water. The ocean liner, with all its infrastructure and so forth, the AMA has set up, they cannot turn very easily. And they're full speed ahead with their agenda. To get the AMA to invest emotionally in this, much less financially, is not going to happen, because they're focused on their agenda and scope of practice, and they're focused on these things, and these are good things, but they just don't have the means to take part in this type of grassroots organizations. To share one other story from PA Med, and I'm active in PA Med, I serve on the board, I embrace PA Med and so forth. But even at that, I gave a lecture a few years ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, on pharmacy benefit managers, and talking about middlemen and how they are basically corrupting, the pharmaceutical industry and the cost of meds and so forth. Now, these are invested people. I could not even sell my fellow members on the board of trustees to simply say that PBMs are bad. I could not get them to say that. It's status quo.
Terrible.
That is the message. Is they're not, it's not, these are not bad people or anything like that. You know, I reject some of the statements in that regard, but they're focused on their agenda and they're not going to be able to think outside the box. So I think we're wasting our time if we try to get the AMA invested in this. I think the approach is to talk to individual physicians rather than organizations. Just my humble opinion.
I totally agree, and I really appreciate that. And that brings me back to a conversation I had earlier with Marshall. I'm really grateful for you coming on and sharing your story with us and giving some people a little glimpse into your life as a venture capitalist and an HPEC founding partner. But it's about the individual. And these small, nimble, grassroots organizations are full of really activist physicians who are also very nimble, who are working together in a concerted fashion. But as systems grow in the centralized world, they become less nimble. And like you said, there are these slow ocean liners that, yeah, maybe they can carry a lot of cargo, but they can't really go in a new direction very easily. And so that's what the power of this technology. It allows individuals to still have rights, have ownership over their right to work, be able to move freely through health systems, communicate with each other freely in a secure fashion, but also have this swift, nimble communication that we're trying to build for everyone here too. And that's what this is about. And this is the future, this is the future that we are excited to look forward to together. So I'm grateful for everybody that came on tonight. I'm grateful for everybody's questions. I'm grateful to the investors who have invested. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for sharing it on social media. That's what crowdfunding is about. It's about getting the crowd to be aware of this. If people aren't aware, they can't even take it into consideration. And so give people an opportunity to be aware of it by sharing it. And with that, unless there is anything else anyone wanted to add, I'd like to say goodnight.
Thanks for having me on, Leah, and thanks to everybody.